Hi there, everyone. Hope you're having a terrific start to your Thursday. Meteorologist Josh Rucker here with meteorologist Leslie Castro in the background. Getting ready to rock and roll with the CTV show, right? In about 30 minutes or so, right? Yep. So make sure you tune in to 479 First at 12:30 for all the latest details with Leslie Castro. But wanted to provide a quick update. Found a little bit of time to come on the live stream and talk with you guys about the winter storm potential that we've got coming up this weekend. You already know the drill. We are going to see a winter storm here in Northwest Arkansas. In this live stream, it's going to be about 15 to 20 minutes. It's not going to be a very long one, but we are going to talk about the latest accumulation map and the timing, the specific timing for counties across Northwest Arkansas and the River Valley. I think you're really going to like this live stream. So let's get right to it. I know a lot of folks are in the chat right now, ready to rock and roll. So let us get to all of the latest details. First of all, our weather headlines. A powerful winter storm is expected over Northwest Arkansas and the River Valley. We are going to see a major winter storm, especially along and north of the Bobby Hopper Tunnel. Main time frame, Friday night through Sunday afternoon. There could be a little bit of light winter precipitation before Friday night, but no significant impacts are expected at this time. Heavy accumulated snow will be the predominant precipitation type in Northwest Arkansas, while in the River Valley, more sleet and freezing rain will be possible, which is very important because that could eat away at some of the snowfall totals. But here's a look at the winter storm warning. You saw this at the beginning of the live stream. Every single county in our weather coverage area now under that winter storm warning, which starts Friday at noon, goes all the way till Sunday at 3 p.m. Total snow and sleet accumulations between 6 to 12 inches. Going to be likely over most of Northwest Arkansas. There could be locally higher amounts up to 15 inches as well in the higher terrain areas of NWA. We're also looking at the potential for ice along and south of Interstate 40, especially in LaFleur and Scott County. We'll talk about that in just a few moments when I show you that latest snow accumulation map. But here's a look at the Winter Storm Severity Index as well. We're just now starting to see those major impacts across the entire weather coverage area, especially along Interstate 49, Interstate 40. Wouldn't be surprised if a few counties in the River Valley, especially towards Scott and LaFleur County, if we saw some extreme impacts start to sneak in, because those areas could see a little bit more ice along with the wind that could cause some significant power disruptions. So we'll have to watch that very closely. I think for Northwest Arkansas, most of the I-40 corridor will be sticking with those major impacts when it comes to this particular storm system. But wanted to show that off because it kind of gives you a general idea. This is going to be a highly impactful winter storm, not just for Northwest Arkansas, but also a large part of the country. I mean, I'm zooming out here. You can see major impacts extending all the way from the panhandle of Texas into portions of Kentucky, Tennessee, and Mississippi. Look at that. There's a string of extreme impacts there in northern Mississippi as they're expecting a full-on ice storm. So definitely a big-time winter storm, and it's not just going to be in these areas. It's also going to be across the northeast United States as well. So let's take a look at satellite radar. There's the storm system that is churning off the west coast of the United States. Folks, this system means business. It looks angry right now on water vapor. Look at all that energy that's kind of contorting just off to the west of San Francisco and Los Angeles. Again, all this energy going to be pushing towards NWA starting Friday afternoon, but really ramping up as we go throughout Friday night into Saturday. So let's time everything out right now for you on Future Track. First of all, I can't rule out maybe some areas of freezing drizzle across Northwest Arkansas, sleet pellet or two. Certainly can't be ruled out as well before 12 p.m. That's not uncommon with these storm systems. I'm not expecting significant impacts with any energy that tries to leak its way in here, but just something to keep an eye on. I know it's not popping up on the model here, but there's about a 20% chance for that along and north of the Bobby Hopper Tunnel with this first piece of energy. Of course, as we move throughout Friday afternoon, precipitation is going to start ramping up just off to our west. You can see very light precip along and north of the Bobby Hopper Tunnel at 4 or 5 o'clock. Folks, I know it's going to seem like this system is a bust during the afternoon and evening hours tomorrow. Don't be fooled, because we're going to be continuing with a lot of dry air initially, but as that firehouse of moisture makes its way into Northwest Arkansas, we're going to start seeing those precipitation rates really ramp up. And you can see that here on Future Track. I mean, you snap your fingers after about 6, 7 o'clock and we get to about 9 p.m. That's when the roadways are going to start deteriorating. That's when we're going to be dealing with widespread winter weather impacts. Notice how in Northwest Arkansas, most of this, according to the model, is falling as snow. But I do think there will be some sleet pellets mixing in NWA at least through about midnight Friday. So that could eat away at the snowfall totals just a little bit. In the River Valley, dealing with mostly sleet, I think, at this time along the Interstate 40 corridor. In fact, it could be Sleet-Mageddon from Fort Smith all the way to Little Rock. And then in Scott and LaFleur County, we're dealing with more of a wintry mix of freezing rain and sleet as that warm nose tries to leak its way in to southern portions of the River Valley. So that's a look at that high-resolution rapid refresh model. Notice that banding that tries to go on late Friday night and early Saturday morning. This is where those snowfall rates will be a little enhanced, and also along the line where the sleet and snow is setting up, that's where you're going to really start to see very heavy precipitation rates. So depending on where that sets up, that's going to determine where the heaviest snow will fall, at least with this first piece of energy. So that was the HRRR model. Again, that's a bit of a high-resolution model right there. This is the NAM 3-kilometer model. That's also showing quite a bit of snow moving through northwest Arkansas. But notice at 3 p.m. on Saturday how things start to dry out just a little bit. That means that first round of energy is out of northwest Arkansas, and we're seeing what we call a little lull in the activity. It's not the end of this winter storm because, as you'll soon see, there's going to be a second burst of energy. But don't be surprised Saturday afternoon between about 1 to 6 p.m. if we see a bit of a lull in the precipitation, especially along and north of the Bobby Hopper Tunnel in NWA. But let's extend this to the graph model now because this is 6 p.m., right? I'm just telling you about the lull in the activity, right? The graph does have that lull as well. I think it's doing a great job showing that. Again, very light snow expected Saturday afternoon. And then we get to Saturday night with that second piece of energy surging in. And this is where we're really going to see some very heavy snowfall rates, not just in northwest Arkansas, but also in the River Valley. I think by this point, we're starting to transition to more snow along the I-40 corridor. Notice how we're getting a little bit of that banding as well, especially along the I-49 corridor in areas east. And then as we go throughout the overnight hours Saturday into early Sunday morning, we'll continue to see more moisture make its way into northwest Arkansas. A few snow showers could certainly linger Sunday afternoon before all the energy pushes out of our area. And then our focus turns towards all these colder temperatures that we're going to be seeing in northwest Arkansas and the River Valley. So we'll talk about that in just a few moments. But here's a look at the projected ice accumulation from some of the models that we look at here in studio. I really think most of the ice is going to be south of the Interstate 40 corridor, but I can't rule out maybe 1/10 to 2/10 of an inch of ice along Interstate 40. And then as you get towards Scott and LaFleur County, maybe up to a 1/2 inch of ice is certainly not out of the realm of possibility. European model, I think, is a little bit more aggressive with that warm nose, but it also does a great job with showing it here in northwest Arkansas. Before I continue, I want to answer this question real quick. Why don't you show Polk County? Almost none of the news channels show nothing on us. And unfortunately, Carolyn, we don't cover Polk County because our antenna doesn't reach that particular county. But what I can say is that Polk County, for you specifically, because that comment stood out to me, you guys are going to be dealing with potentially some significant ice. So hopefully that helps you out when it comes to planning for this event. You could see maybe ice storm warning criteria accumulation with this particular storm system in Polk County. So make sure you're prepared for the potential for power outages and winterize your house because that cold air is really going to impact you there in Polk County. Just wanted to say that real quick. I know we were getting into kind of the nitty gritty and everything, but that comment stood out to me, Carolyn. I want to make sure you're taken care of as well. So that's to all the people watching in Polk County. Again, more ice is expected the farther south you go. So if you live near the Mena area, just make sure you're staying weather aware on that front. Let's continue for northwest Arkansas and the River Valley. The GFS model, not showing as much ice. It's a little bit more aggressive when it comes to that Arctic air mass above the surface. So that column of air above the surface usually stays below 32 degrees according to the GFS. Sometimes it can overcompensate that just a little bit. So I don't really buy the GFS. I also don't buy the NAM. I don't think we're going to be dealing with 2/10 or 3/10 of an inch of ice in the Fayetteville area, but it does show you that there could be a bit of a warm nose in northwest Arkansas that allows some sleet to work its way in and maybe eat away at some of those snowfall totals. That's kind of the fly in the ointment right now from us really extending that snowfall total to include northwest Arkansas when it comes to areas that could see over a foot. So we're watching these trends very closely. Let you know about the latest details on that front. Look at the snowfall totals that some of the models are pumping out here, folks. I mean, this is just insane. Every single model showing about 8 to 12 inches of snow across a large part of the weather coverage area. Some models are also showing more snow in the River Valley, though I don't know if I necessarily buy that. I think these models are just a little bit too cold when it comes to the deepness of that Arctic air. The NAM 3-kilometer is just insane. I mean, look at Fayetteville. It's got almost 2 feet of snow showing up there in Fayetteville. It's also got a big cutoff when it comes to the snow and the freezing rain as well. In the River Valley, you can see south of Interstate 40, there's not as much snow. And then as you get a little bit farther to the east, you can see that cutoff continuing as it pushes towards Kentucky and portions of New England. And then here's a look at the GFS model. You can see, again, it's showing a lot more snow in the River Valley than I think we're actually going to see when it comes to this particular storm system. And then for the European model, notice how the bulk of the snow is along and north of the Bobby Hopper Tunnel with lesser totals along and south of Interstate 40. Another important thing to remember when it comes to a lot of those snowfall accumulation maps that you see in social media, that's assuming a 10-to-1 ratio, right? When it comes to this particular storm system, maybe initially we're around like 12-to-1, 13-to-1 with the snow to liquid ratio. But as we go throughout this event, we are going to see that ratio increase to about 17-1 to 18-1. So we're really going to see that start ramping up over portions of northwest Arkansas. So the European model, yeah, it's crazy when it comes to the snow, Jeremy. I don't know if I necessarily buy all that happening along I-49, but it is important to talk about those things. I also want to show this graphic that I made here behind the scenes real quick. If you're wondering about timing, if you're wondering about specific snow precipitation types, this right here is going to show you that. So notice how in Madison, Newton, and Boone County, initially there's a little bit of that sleet and snow that's working its way in Friday night and Saturday morning, but the majority of the precipitation is going to fall in the form of snow, which is why 12 plus inches will be likely in those areas in the higher terrain locations of the Boston Mountains. Now in Benton, Carroll, Washington County, there might be a longer period of time of sleet and snow, which may eat away at some of those totals, at least initially in the morning. And then as we go throughout Sunday, early Sunday morning, that's when we're going to start seeing that second burst of all snow that pushes through the area. And that's when we're going to see those snowfall totals really ramp up between 8 to 12 inches with maybe some locally higher amounts depending on how long that sleet sticks around. River Valley is a little more interesting. Notice how right around midnight to 6 a.m. Friday night and Saturday, we're dealing with more freezing rain and sleet. Then that's transitioning to very heavy sleet between 6 a.m. to noon. So there's going to be a period of time where you're dealing with all sleet in the River Valley, and that's going to fall hard and heavy. And then we're going to get a little lull in the activity during the afternoon hours Saturday before mostly snow falls between 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. Sunday. And that's when you're going to start seeing more accumulation between 4 to 9 inches. Again, the farther south you go in the River Valley, the less snowfall you'll see. And that's when you're going to start seeing more of that sleet as you head towards Scott and LaFleur County. Well, along Interstate 40, I think that transition to snow will happen a little bit more quickly. All right, let's talk about the forecast of snow and sleet totals. This is the map that I just updated earlier this morning. Notice how in northwest Arkansas, we're forecasting about 8 to 12 inches of snow. There is the possibility for that to be even higher depending on when that transition from sleet and snow to all snow occurs. And then in the higher terrain areas of northwest Arkansas, you're going to see maybe over a foot of snow. So that's towards like Huntsville, Jasper, Harrison. As you get into Carroll, Madison, Newton, and Boone County, those areas could see over a foot of snow. And then if you go a little bit farther to the south in the River Valley, notice how there's that kind of transparent color that you're seeing there. That's where we could see a little bit more sleet. Up to 4 inches of sleet will be possible in those locations, which is just insane, right? And you think about it, with sleet, it takes a lot for it to pile up, but the sleet could be very heavy along Interstate 40. There is going to be a corridor of insane sleet rates with this particular storm system. So we're watching the I-40 corridor very closely. And then south of this red line, south of Greenwood and Poto, towards Booneville, Waldron, Big Cedar, these areas right here could see between 1/4 to 1/2 inch of ice. Some of the models have been struggling when it comes to the warm nose, but I wouldn't be surprised if we saw significant icing in these locations. 1/4 to 1/2 inch is big time, folks. That can cause power outages, especially when you factor in the wind. So we'll have to watch that very closely. But the point is with this map, most of the precipitation in northwest Arkansas is going to fall in the form of snow. If we're on the lower end of the totals, right, we are going to see maybe a little bit more sleet in NWA. And then if we're on the higher end of the totals, that means we transition from sleet to snow a lot quicker. In the River Valley, it's a little bit more complicated. There's going to be a little bit more snow in the higher terrain areas of the River Valley north of Fort Smith towards Mountainburg, maybe Alma. But you get south of I-40, that's when you're dealing with more sleet. That's when you're dealing with more of a warm nose. And that's where we could start to see maybe some more impacts when it comes to ice. So that's what we're dealing with when it comes to the accumulation maps. Before we wrap up this discussion today, I also want to talk about the new extreme cold warnings that were just issued. Now, we're going to move that out of the way. Of course, you're seeing that pink on the map. That's that winter storm warning. But if I move the winter storm warning out of the way, you're going to see this dark blue shaded color right here. That's the extreme cold warning that has now been issued for the entire KNWA Fox 24 coverage area. This is valid starting Friday night at midnight, going all the way through Monday at 12 p.m. So we could see dangerous wind chill values as low as 15 to 20 degrees below zero across the I-49 and Interstate 40 corridors. And this is where things can start getting dangerous, folks, because if you start having power issues or heat issues, you can be severely impacted by this cold. And it seems like with every single model run, these models trend even colder than what we saw before. So this is Saturday afternoon. Notice how temperatures are in the middle to upper teens to lower 20s. We're already dealing with single-digit wind chill values. And then as you wake up Sunday morning, we could be seeing single-digit air temperatures in northwest Arkansas with wind chill values below zero. And that is going to continue as we move towards the early part of next week, Sunday afternoon, not getting much warmer according to the European model, which makes sense because of that snowpack that's in place in Northwest Arkansas. And then as we go throughout Sunday night and Monday, I mean, the European model keeps trending colder. Look at Fayetteville, it's showing temperatures as low as 17 degrees below zero. Thankfully, the wind chill factor is not as much of it's not in play because those winds are becoming calm along and north of the Bobby Hopper Tunnel. But still, this right here is a big deal, folks. This is dangerous, life-threatening cold. And this is why we've been harping on the 4 Ps over the last several days: pets, pipes, people, plants, all those things. Really got to make sure you bring in those pets inside as well. Somebody reminded me of that earlier today. If you have outdoor plants, make sure they have access to a warm shelter. Make sure they've got access to fresh water as well, because if you keep them outside, they are going to be seriously hurt by some of this cold. I know some folks say, well, it's not feasible for me to bring in my, outdoor dog inside or outdoor cat inside. That's okay. Just make sure they're maybe like in a garage or in some shelter with access to heat and food and water, because those fur babies are going to be struggling if they're left outside with temperatures like this. Because if it's cold for you, it's also cold for them, and they'll have to deal with it throughout the entire event. So just make sure they're inside and staying nice and warm when it comes to that. And also make sure you're checking on your neighbors. Make sure they have access to heat. Make sure they have good power. And if they don't, then make sure they have a place to stay somewhere warm as we go throughout this event. Because once we get to Saturday and Sunday and we start dealing with widespread winter weather, it's going to be too late to winterize your house. So now is the time to do that. Just make sure you're making those proper preparations right now. Let's show the 7-day forecast real quick. If it sounds like I'm talking a little bit lower, by the way, they're recording a CTV show on the side right now for Pig Trail Nation. So right now I'm just trying to keep it down for them and everything and still give you guys access to this information. This is a look at the 7-day forecast. Obviously, we got that alert day in place, high temperatures in the teens across Northwest Arkansas as we go throughout the weekend. Overnight lows dropping off to 12 degrees below zero, according to our forecast, but it could get even colder than that Sunday night and Monday morning. I really don't think we see significant melting until Tuesday afternoon, when temperatures are more borderline freezing with abundant sunshine, though refreezing could also occur as we go throughout Tuesday night into early Wednesday morning. River Valley, very similar to Northwest Arkansas. High temperatures going to struggle to get out of the teens as we go throughout Saturday and Sunday. Overnight lows below zero Sunday night into Monday morning. And then we start warming back up into the upper 30s to lower 40s by the time we get to the early part of next week. So hopefully everything I just mentioned right now gives you the information. Now we need to change it to say winter storm warning in place. Yeah, I agree with that, Dan Scoff. So we're still fine-tuning stuff behind the scenes right now. Again, CTV's recording in the background, so hopefully you can just hear me when it comes to that front. But I just wanted to make sure we got a live stream out before I headed home. I've been working a lot this morning. There's a lot of graphics online that you can see for the latest timing and also for the accumulation. I also see this comment right here. How is it looking for the 1st of February? Right now, Sniped for Life, what we're focusing on is this storm system that's coming up later on this week. This has already given us enough headaches here in the Weather Lab. Once we get past this system, we'll start looking ahead to maybe another potential storm late next week, but that's very much up in the air right now. Obviously, nothing is set in stone, so we'll keep a close eye on those trends and let you know about the latest details. Leslie, you got anything to add real quick?
I think you covered it all.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right on the money.
Doing a rapid fire live stream right here, that's for
pretty
sure.
much, yeah.
And also trying to keep it down too, because again, they're recording CTV at this time and we don't want to, interrupt them and everything. So just making sure you guys have access to the newest information. Why does this thing like to just move all over the place, by the way? It just likes to have a mind of its own right now. Anyway, I'm going to read just a few comments here real quick. Stop going down. Golly. This thing's trolling me right now. Exactly. Let's see. Pets, pipes, people, plants, and raccoons. Brian loves the raccoons, man. Every time we have a winter storm, he's always mentioning that. Let's see here. I've never seen 4 inches of sleet. I've never seen that either personally, Jeremy. It's actually absolutely unbelievable that that's even a thought for areas along and south of Interstate 40. Let's see here. Josh, how many days out of school for Northwest Arkansas next week? So, Ginger, I always say when it comes to stuff like this, ultimately it's not our decision. I don't think school's happening Monday. I really think it would be a bad idea to have school Tuesday as well with that black ice and refreezing potential. I think Wednesday maybe with more of a delayed start to allow that black ice to melt. But again, it's not ultimately not my decision. I think they'll be fine to have school tomorrow personally. I think the winter weather tomorrow is going to be very light in nature. It's really not until we get to around 6, 7 o'clock in the evening on Friday when things start to ramp up. So we're saying that today is the last really true day to prepare. Tomorrow morning, you might have time, but it's kind of running against the clock at that point. It's also going to be much colder tomorrow. So today is the day to make sure you're preparing for winter weather. let's see here. Could the snow overperform and produce 2 feet of snow? It's certainly possible, David. The problem is the reason why in our forecast, and I'll show that one more time real quick. The reason why we don't have over 2 feet of snow, or at least over a foot of snow right now, like set in stone for Northwest Arkansas, is because of those flies in the ointment. We could see a little bit more sleet than what's being modeled right now, and that could play a huge role on our weather along the I-49 corridor. For areas farther east, that layer of cold air above the surface may be a little bit deeper, and that could lead to more snow as we go throughout this event. So that's why we're dealing with more snow along and north of the Bobby Hopper Tunnel, but still some questions along the I-49 corridor. Is it going to be bad at 11 p.m.? So all you need to know, right, is that 6 to 7 o'clock Friday, around that time frame, maybe 1 or 2 hours before or after that, but I think between 6 to 7 p.m., that's when the roadways are going to start deteriorating. So 11 p.m. is going to be bad, I think. By 11 p.m., I think the models, I think the snow is going to be ramping up over Northwest Arkansas. You're going to be dealing with a lot of sleet along and south of Interstate 40 in the River Valley, and I think there's going to be a lot of problems after 6 to 7 p.m. on Friday. And Jesse, you're right, 15 to 18 to 1 ratio. It'll change a little bit throughout this event. I think the first round of snow will favor more of like a 15 to 1 ratio. The second round will pile up really quickly, and I think we're going to be dealing with more of like a 17 to 1 to 18 to 1 ratio, and that's because those temperatures will be dropping off very quickly. Start time for NWA. I saw this right here, so I'll show this graphic as well before we wrap up this live stream. I guess it's got a little bit longer than I originally planned, but you know what? We got a lot of things to discuss right now, so I really appreciate everybody asking questions. This is a look at the timeline. Again, for Northwest Arkansas, it's pretty set in stone. I mean, I think we'll see a little bit more sleet the farther south you go, but mostly snow throughout this event. You can see 2 distinct rounds of heavy snow in Northwest Arkansas. One of those, that's for Friday night to Saturday morning, and then another one that comes through Saturday night into Sunday morning as well. And that second round that comes through Saturday night, that one may be a little bit more intense. And then for the River Valley, we're going to start off with more of a freezing rain sleet mixture late Friday night and Saturday morning, right around 6, 7 o'clock Saturday. Heavy sleet expected along the Interstate 40 corridors. We get a little break between noon to 6 p.m. before that second round of energy moves through, producing mostly snow, but still some sleet south of Interstate 40. Looks like 49 inches is looking likely for most spots across the River Valley. So, yes, and so that's a great mention right there, Michaela, or Michaela. Hopefully I got your name right there. Half inch of ice really is enough to start causing problems with power lines. I think there is that potential along and south of Interstate 40. I think in Scott and LaFleur County, we'll need to keep an eye on the potential for significant icing. If I go back to this graphic real quick and then go into the River Valley, notice how you got that kind of transparent layer. That's where you could see up to 4 inches of sleet with the system. And then south of that red dotted line, you can see a quarter to a half inch of ice. And that's where we could see some of that significant icing. I know we had a viewer in Polk County as well that was wondering. I think there's going to be a lot more ice in and around Polk County. So just make sure you're staying weather aware on that front and staying off the roadways. But folks, I've got to wrap up this forecast because Leslie is about to get on her CTV show at 12:30 p.m. So tune in to 479 first for all the latest details with Leslie. I'm going to get out of here because I'm about to pass out.
Yeah.
I'm about to be knocked out here. But thank you guys so much for trusting the Weather Authority team. Y'all have a great rest of your Thursday. Stay safe, and we'll have all the latest details coming up later tonight, starting at 5 on KNWA.